When they sat me at the kitchen table during my brother Jason's wedding reception, all I could do was smile and play it off. 2 weeks later, I made a decision that shocked everyone. I pulled our family company's $1 million contract with his new in-laws business. It's true what they say, blood is thicker than water, but disrespect has consequences. I'll never forget the looks on their faces when they realized what I'd done. If you've ever felt let down by family members who were supposed to have your back, you might just understand why I couldn't let this slide. Before I dive into how everything unraveled, let me know where you're tuning in from today. This wild family drama taught me some tough lessons about standing up for myself and genuinely changed the way I see loyalty. If you like real stories about family betrayal and unexpected payback, now's your chance. Hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Trust me, you'll want to stick around to see how it all plays out. See, I was never meant to be the successful one in my family. That role belonged to my older brother Jason, no contest. Growing up, the family dynamic was obvious. Jason was the golden child. I was the one who needed to try a little harder. At 41, Jason had this charisma that drew people in naturally. Tall, great smile, effortless charm. He could turn heads wherever he went and somehow always become the center of attention. Me? I was always called practical and responsible. Family code for kind of boring. Our family business, Matthews Construction, was founded by my dad, Thomas, 35 years ago. It started humbly, but thanks to my persistence, some major number crunching, and a Wharton MBA, it's now one of the top construction companies in the Northeast. After business school, I could have chosen a cushy consulting job in Manhattan, but I came home instead. The company needed an overhaul, and saving it became my mission. Whenever my mom, Margaret, introduced me, she'd say, "Olivia's always been good with numbers, usually with this little wave. Like my financial skills were a cute party trick, something to smile at but not to take too seriously. Never mind that my so-called party trick had saved the company more than once." Meanwhile, Jason's official title was something flashy, Vice President of Client Relations, but his day-to-day looked very different from mine. He'd show up for the occasional big client dinner, tell funny stories on the golf course, and somehow take credit for deals I had painstakingly put together. I worked 60-hour weeks, managed finances, hammered out contracts, and genuinely kept the company in the black. Every time I'd bring up the imbalances to my father, he'd shut it down with the same line. "Your brother brings in the business, Liv. People respond to him. That's just as important as what you do behind the scenes." Behind the scenes. Those words ended up feeling like my official family job title. Things got really complicated when Jason announced his engagement to Vanessa Cordwell. And the Cordwells? That's old money territory. Vanessa's dad, Richard Cordwell, owns Cordwell Properties, a luxury real estate company that pretty much runs half the high-end market in our area. For 3 years, Matthews Construction has had a lucrative, exclusive contract with Cordwell Properties. I had personally renegotiated the most recent renewal, pushing for and finally winning profit margins that made sense for us. "It's wonderful," my mom gushed the night Jason and Vanessa broke the news at a big family dinner. "Two families coming together. It's like a business marriage as well as a real one." I tried to smile while something about the whole thing unsettled me. Vanessa was always nice enough in public, but honestly, there was something about her gaze, like she was sizing up our family the same way she might size up a fixer-upper property. Later, while my mom and I were cleaning up, she said, "We'll have to get you more involved in the social circuit now that we're connected to the Cordwells. No more hiding in your office. Maybe you'll even meet someone." I was 32, single, and my mother never forgot it. She managed to sneak it into almost every conversation. The suggestion was clear. No matter my professional wins, I was failing at what mattered. Husband, family, the right kind of success. "I'm not hiding, Mom. I'm running a company," I tried, keeping my tone even. "Somebody's got to make sure we stay profitable." "Oh, with the Cordwell connection, maybe you won't have to work so hard," she added, touching my cheek as if I was still 12. "Jason really did well for all of us." Driving back to my apartment in the city that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that our family dynamic was shifting permanently. I love my brother, faults and all, but I also knew that after this wedding, some things might never be the same. What I didn't realize was just how right I'd be, or how completely unprepared I was for what would happen next. The 6 months leading up to Jason and Vanessa's wedding could be called a masterclass in subtle humiliation. At first, I tried to brush it all off. They're just little things, right? But the little snubs started piling up fast. It began at the Cordwell estate for their engagement party, a house so massive it made the place I grew up in look like a dollhouse. I showed up alone, wearing a navy dress I'd splurged on, trying to feel confident. But Vanessa's mother, Caroline, took one look at me and said, "How professional you look," somehow making it sound like an insult in front of everyone. Throughout the night, I was introduced again and again as Jason's sister who works at the family business, not CFO, not the person who doubled revenue in 5 years, just the sister. Each time, I'd politely clarify, but nobody cared. Within seconds, every conversation would shift to wedding plans or Cordwell's next luxury condo project. For a quick breather, I escaped to the terrace and overheard something that froze me in my tracks. Vanessa's mother was chatting with someone and said, "The Matthews have potential, but they've got this small-town mentality, especially the sister, so focused on work. Poor thing, no sense of the bigger social picture." Vanessa just laughed, adding, "After the wedding, we can start making the necessary adjustments." I left before they noticed me, convincing myself that they were just snobby. Nothing to worry about, but still, their words gnawed at me. The closer we got to the wedding, the more red flags popped up. When I offered to help Vanessa with planning, she declined, said everything was being handled by professionals, but strangely, she would call me at work with urgent questions. Jason mentioned a childhood vacation spot with a funny name. What was it again? Lake Winnipesaukee, for the record. We spent every summer there until my mom sold the cabin. She thanked me, saying, "You're so good with the little things," as though family memories were just minor wedding details to be filed away. While all that was happening, I was also quietly worrying about my dad. He seemed exhausted, and I'd caught him wincing in pain a couple of times, reaching for pills he'd try to hide before I noticed. When I brought it up to my mom, she brushed it off. "Your father's fine. Quit looking for problems and focus on being supportive for your brother." The dress shopping trip for Vanessa's gown was another low point. I wasn't in the bridal party. "It's just closest friends," Vanessa said, but my mom insisted I tag along to see the dress. I sat on a velvet couch listening to Vanessa's friends make snide remarks about my work attire. "I just admire career women who don't have time to shop," one whispered, eyeing my heels. "So brave to not care." I caught Vanessa's smirk in the mirror. Her dream dress probably cost more than my mortgage. Worst of all, Jason started canceling our monthly sibling dinners. No explanation, just one excuse after another. Finally, I managed to catch him alone for lunch, 2 months before the wedding. "I feel like things are changing between us, Jace, and I'm worried about Dad. Have you noticed anything strange?" I asked. He sighed, barely looking up from his phone. "You're overthinking things like always. Dad's fine, and yes, things are changing. I'm getting married. That's what happens. It feels like more than that. The Cordwells, I'm not sure they respect what we've built at Matthews Construction." He snapped. "Are you really going to do this? Create drama because you're jealous?" Jealous? I was stunned. "You know, that I found someone, that something good is finally happening to me instead of you being Dad's perfect business protege." His words hit hard. "That's not fair, Jason. I've always supported you." He interrupted, voice sharp now. "You always wanted more credit, more control. Well, after the wedding, things are going to change. The Cordwells have ideas to take us to the next level. Dad agrees. Maybe it's time you figured out if you're really a team player, Olivia. Seems like you're only happy when you're in charge." He left me sitting there, realizing that what we were about to lose wasn't just a business, but our relationship as siblings. And none of us had any idea just how literal that loss would become. The wedding day arrived with all the pomp and pageantry you'd expect from a Cordwell event. The venue was a sprawling estate overlooking the bay, draped in white roses and twinkling fairy lights. Cameras followed every move. Professional videographers, family friends snapping photos, and vendors bustling behind the scenes. I felt like an extra in someone else's movie. As Jason and Vanessa exchanged their vows beneath a floral arch, I forced a smile, clapped when everyone else did, but inside, I was numb. I caught Vanessa's eye once and saw something cold and calculating look back at me. No warmth, no spark, just a flicker that whispered, "I own this now." Post-ceremony during the cocktail hour, the power dynamics were obvious. Everyone sought out the Cordwells, eager to make connections. Vanessa floated effortlessly, wearing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Jason, my brother, was glowing, but there was a tension wrapped around him, like he was trying hard not to cough up the truth behind those polished appearances. When it was my turn to be introduced, it was clear that the new family had decided on the narrative. I was Jason's sister, who handles the books. Every compliment was perfunctory, every conversation shallow. Vanessa's mother stuck close, never missing a chance to suggest the Cordwells were the tier above. By the time the reception ended, I was exhausted enough to not notice the subtle nod when Richard Cordwell took Jason aside for a quick chat. What was said remains a mystery to me, but I knew it was something serious. The day after the wedding, things took a sudden, sharp turn. I was back in the office trying to catch up from the chaos of the weekend when my phone rang. A deep voice identified himself as Martin, Richard Cordwell's right-hand man. He delivered the message coldly. Effective immediately, Cordwell Properties will not be renewing their contract with Matthews Construction. We're moving our projects to a new partner. My heart sank. The contract was huge, over $1 million annually, and had been the backbone of our revenue for years. I asked Martin if there was anything we could do, any reason given, but he just said it was a strategic decision, no room for negotiation. It was hard not to suspect the orchestrating hand behind this was Vanessa's family, the same people who barely hid their disdain for me and everything I represented. This was more than business. It felt personal. I ran the news by Dad that evening, watching as the color drained from his face. His normally steady hands trembled slightly as he lit his pipe, exhaling smoke with a long sigh. "We'll regroup," he said quietly. "It's a setback, but not the end." I respected his stoicism, but I could see he was hurting. His health had been waving red flags for months now, and I hated that this hit him like a punch in the gut. The weeks that followed were an uphill battle. The news leaked internally, leading to uncertainty among our staff and nervous meetings with other clients. Everyone asked the same question: what happened with Cordwell? Trying to hold everything together, I pushed for more meetings with potential clients, stressed over budgets, and even considered layoffs, things I'd promised myself I'd never have to do. I found myself walking the thin line between a business crisis and a fractured family. Jason, meanwhile, was conspicuously absent. Calls and texts went unanswered. When I finally cornered him after a business event, his answer was ice cold. "This isn't about us. I'm focused on building alliances with the Cordwells. You need to stop making things worse." My voice cracked. "I didn't pull the contract. This wasn't my decision." "You're blinded by bitterness," he shot back. "Maybe it's time you realized your place." That hit deeper than I expected. He wasn't just dismissing me, he was drawing a line in the sand. Now I had to make a decision. Let the Cordwells steamroll Matthews Construction and watch my family's legacy burn? Or take a stand, consequences be damned. Late one night, fueled by frustration and caffeine, I drafted a letter to the Cordwell board, laying out every financial detail, every effort Matthews had made and was willing to make to keep the partnership alive. I sent it off with a clear message. We want to work together, but we will not be underestimated. The response was surprisingly swift. Martin called again, this time with an invite to a private meeting at Cordwell headquarters. They wanted to hear me out. Walking into the sleek glass towers of Cordwell Properties felt like entering a different universe. The air was cooler, the faces more polished. Richard Cordwell himself was there, looking every inch the titan of industry. He started the meeting with a measured smile. "Olivia, your letter was impressive. Your passion is clear. But I have to ask, why drag family drama into this? Our decision isn't about personal feelings." I met his gaze. "It's not personal. Then why pull the contract the day after the wedding? Why undermine the company I've dedicated my life to building?" He sighed. "Business and family don't always mix well. Your brother's alliance with us is for growth and innovation. We see potential, but potential requires flexibility." "Flexibility?" I echoed, raising my eyebrows. "We've been partners for years. Our contract terms reflect market realities. You want us to bend so completely that we lose what makes us viable?" "It's about evolution, Olivia. You'll see in time." Walking out of that meeting, I had enough material to know the Cordwells weren't just business partners. They were trying to reshape the entire Matthews legacy. But what unsettled me most was Richard's subtle warning behind his polished words. I needed to figure out how to protect Matthews Construction and my family's honor without losing myself in the process. Back home, I made a call to my mom. Her voice, normally warm and calm, was strained. "I'm worried about your father. He's worse, Liv. The doctors recommended rest, but he insists on working. And Jason, he's so wrapped up in his new life that it's like you don't exist." I swallowed hard, realizing that the family fractures went deeper than I'd thought. We had to act, not just as business people, but as a family. That's when I started reaching out, to old contacts, to local councils, even to former clients who trusted Matthews because of my direct work with them. My goal was to prove that we weren't just a one-contract company, but a cornerstone of the community. Slowly, things began to shift. A small developer who'd been on the fence finally signed on. Another longtime client extended their agreement. It was still a struggle, but a spark of hope. Yet, despite these wins, at home, the fractures persisted. My brother and I talked less, avoided each other more, and every family dinner became an exercise in diplomacy. The siblings who once laughed and supported each other now danced around unspoken resentments. Then came the night that changed everything again. Jason called, voice breaking. "We need to talk. It's about Dad." I braced myself. It was the kind of call that makes your heart race before you even pick up. Jason sounded shaken, like the bravado and polish had finally cracked. "Olivia, Dad collapsed. He's in the hospital. You need to come right now." I drove faster than I should have, rehearsing all the possible scenarios, dreading each of them. When I arrived at the hospital, my mother was in the waiting room, clutching a tissue and looking much older than she had hours before. Jason sat beside her, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. No sign of Vanessa or the Cordwells. The doctor came out after what felt like forever. Dad had suffered a minor heart attack, the kind they called a warning. He'd need rest, a new diet, and less stress. Words our family had always ignored but couldn't any longer. That night, with Jason and me at Dad's bedside, it became obvious that everything had changed. Jason finally spoke, voice barely louder than a whisper. "I'm scared, Liv. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. The Cordwells, everything with them is complicated. Vanessa wants me to prove myself. Richard expects me to act like I'm one of them." He finally looked up, eyes red. "I am sorry for all of it. You're right. We're losing ourselves. Dad's health, the business, us as a family, it's coming apart." And I let it happen. I sat there stunned. For so long I'd been angry at Jason, at his ambition, his blindness to how the Cordwells treated us, at his willingness to let them steer the business away from what mattered. But now all I saw was my brother, just as lost as I was, wanting to make things right. We talked well into the night. This time not as adversaries, but as siblings. He confessed how Vanessa and her family had pressured him to get Matthews Construction to agree to even steeper terms, how he'd felt trapped between pleasing his new in-laws and being loyal to his own family. He admitted he'd felt invisible at times growing up, like Dad never really believed he could measure up in the business world. All the flash, all the pageantry. It was his way of trying to fit somewhere. The next day, before Dad woke up, Jason made a decision right there by the hospital bed. No more hiding, no more letting them pit us against each other. We have to take the company back, Liv, together. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I felt hope that we could put the pieces back together. But family wounds don't heal overnight. Once Dad was home, the real work began. Jason came to me with a plan: rebuild the lost business from the ground up. No more depending on one big fish, no more letting legacy define us. He suggested we start fresh, focusing on smaller community projects that valued our reputation over flashy contracts. This meant tough choices. We'd have to let some staff go, consolidate our office space, and be prepared for lean months ahead. Mom worried. She wondered if we'd ever recover from the Cordwell fallout, but she supported us. And somehow, even Dad, sidelined but sharp as ever, still managed advice from his favorite armchair. We started making calls together, me with the numbers, Jason with the charm. Some old clients came back quicker than I expected. "We always trusted you, Olivia. The Cordwells are sharks. We prefer working with people who remember our names," one developer told me. Another offered up smaller work, saying, "You guys never missed a deadline, even under pressure." It buoyed my spirits. Meanwhile, Jason formally told the Cordwells he wouldn't be acting as their intermediary anymore. Vanessa was furious. Her family took it as an insult. She stopped coming to family gatherings, and the rift widened. Jason stayed true, though. It was like he'd given up performing and finally just wanted to be a Matthews again. With the business stabilized, barely but enough to breathe, I started reflecting on how the chaos had changed me. I was less eager to prove myself, more focused on protecting what we'd built. My relationship with Jason was nowhere near perfect, but we were allies again, and that counted for everything. The one thing I couldn't shake was the knowledge that sometimes, no matter how hard you work, people you love will fail you, or you'll fail them. The Cordwells, with all their wealth and status, never really mattered. What mattered was going to sleep at night knowing I'd chosen family over pride, resilience over bitterness. Evenings in my apartment were quieter after everything. My phone rang less. The drama had settled, replaced by a slow, steady pulse of rebuilding. Contracts renegotiated, employees reassured, my dad's laughter returning, if just a little. If I'd learned anything, it was that family businesses aren't just about profit or legacy. They're about loyalty, humility, and the courage to start over, no matter how many times you're knocked down. Several months passed, and for the first time in ages, our home started to feel like a safe haven again. Dad was recovering well, thanks to an enforced diet and strict rest schedule that only Mom could maintain. We moved slowly, rediscovering what it meant to rely on each other, rather than outsiders or old grudges. Jason came over more often, sometimes just to talk about business, sometimes just to be a brother. I watched him struggle with the fallout from his marriage. Vanessa began spending most of her time with her parents, and those rare evenings she joined us. Things felt strained and awkward. It was clear that her priorities were tied up with pleasing her family, and the thought of ever truly merging the two worlds faded for good. Business-wise, each win, however small, felt like a victory. We secured a municipal project, nowhere near as lucrative as the Cordwell contract, but the kind of job that let us hire a few employees back. Our reputation for reliability and personal service started carrying more weight. Word among local clients was that Matthews Construction was scrappier and somehow more trustworthy since Olivia was running the show. I found myself less focused on the Cordwells, their opinions losing their sting with every passing week. When rumors swirled that their new contractor had walked off a job, something about non-payment and unreasonable demands, I barely felt a flicker of satisfaction. It wasn't my fight anymore. Then, one unremarkable Tuesday morning, Vanessa called me. Her voice for once wavered. "I owe you an apology," she began. "I let my family take over everything, including my marriage. I thought I was doing what was best for Jason. For all of us. For a moment, she sounded so young, so lost, that I remembered why Jason had loved her in the first place. "We can't go back," she said softly, "but maybe someday our families can move forward." That afternoon, as I walked through a construction site and watched our crew laughing, the weight that had hung over me for months finally lifted. I realized that our greatest strength wasn't flashy deals or picture-perfect family portraits. It was showing up for each other, especially when the cameras weren't rolling. A year after the wedding, we threw a small party at Dad and Mom's house. Just close family and a few loyal employees. Nothing fancy, just barbecue and laughter echoing through the backyard. Jason and I raised our glasses, toasting to new beginnings and the hard-earned peace that comes from standing your ground. Before the party ended, Dad took me aside. "You saved us, Liv. Not just the company. Us." His voice was grateful but proud in a way I'd never heard before. Looking around, seeing my family, flawed, battered but together, I finally believed him. This was ours to protect, to fight for, to rebuild. And in a world obsessed with legacy, that's the only victory that ever really matters.